thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. Uh, we decided to organize a session to focus mostly on thinking. Oh, sorry. Focus mostly on the talking about examples and talking about the experiences that we see across the sector. So this won't be a session to talk about technology or to talk about. It's mostly to talk about the examples, to talk about the experiences. So it is a session to share experiences, share learnings, share thoughts, share mistakes, and so use it in that perspective. Feel free to interrupt. Feel free to do it very interactive. It's not supposed to be something where it's a unilateral speech. Before we start, I think to ground us all on why we're here and what is the reason why AI is important and why AI is helping so much, I think maybe just roll a video that will help us ground ourselves.
Being a Red Crosser is like waking up in the middle of the night to go to a place where you have never been to help somebody you have never met. That's the spirit of the Red Cross volunteer. IFRC is a membership organization whose backbones are 16 million volunteers who are always there before the crisis, during the crisis, and after the crisis, at the community level.
In every corner of this country where there is a person who needs help, Costa Rican Red Cross is gonna be there.
The Costa Rican Red Cross is the main ambulance service provider in the country. When you call 911, we're going to be there.
We have one emergency per minute. By year is more than 500,000 emergencies. People knows when there is a Red Cross, there is hope. But we have many challenges. Costa Rican Red Cross needs more digital tools to keep saving lives and to do it better.
There's a huge disparity between the digital capacities of our national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies. The IFRC Digital Transformation Impact Platform is there to support the least digital mature and the least digital resourced national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies. Essentially, Microsoft immediately said, yes, we want to be a partner with you on that journey for the longer term.
The reach of the IFRC is amazing. 160 million people are served every single year. This kind of digital technology can help national societies reach and help people more effectively than ever.
The systems are out of date. We do have a lot of paper-based processes. I mean, we're around 20 years behind technology.
We do it on paper because it's the only option we have right now. But we're still dreaming to have this system digitalized.
With the support of IFRC and Microsoft, we're working on get all that data together on a single database to make a decision based on data and to try to be faster to the person that is in need.
Take the power of real-time data, combine it with the cloud, support it all with AI. It helps organizations marshal their resources, get to people more quickly, and that can save lives.
Imagine we can help 80 national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies where there's floods, drought, violence and conflict affecting millions of people.
The partnership with Microsoft for us is really about how do we reimagine the humanitarian service delivery? How do we actually co-create together with the communities and our partners like Microsoft?
We strongly believe that with better technology, better tools, we can save more life. And yes, of course, we cannot do it alone. We need help to keep helping people.
So, a bit as a segue from the example, I think today is about creating an agenda where we can share a lot more examples like this and talk a bit more about real stories on how technology is being used for a purpose. Centers more on the purpose and less on the technology, and I think this is what we tried. We'll start with a quick perspective. I'll share a bit of some of the trends I'm seeing a bit in the sector. We then have one of the leading organizations that we consider to be kind of pioneering a lot of the AI journey and at a very large scale coming up, and so we'll have Amy from the World Bank sharing a bit the perspective. Then we will have some demos. We have Jivtesh, our senior architect on AI, sharing a bit some examples, some use cases, some real stories, and some real use cases on how AI can really make a difference on the day-to-day of international organizations. And then we will have a panel where we will have a set of other organizations who will bring a bit of their own perspective in very specific areas into how they're leading on their AI journeys and sharing a bit the learnings and the progress they're making, because we consider that all of them in a certain way are kind of special in the way they're thinking about, evolving. Then we have, I think, a fun exercise to stimulate a bit of a debate around, on one hand, the opportunities of AI. On the other hand, I think, it's coming clearly that we also need to think about the ethical use of AI and what are the pitfalls of AI and how we need to think, and educate all ourselves in this discovery journey to consider, both the opportunities and the risks that are inherent to the use of AI. And I think, that discussion will be a really good thing. We will ask in each table to have someone who can also share a perspective of the discussion in the table in a very, very short moment, and then we will just close, and I think we'll call it a session. We'll be here around 2 hours, and I hope you enjoy. This is a session for you, so feel free to participate, to interrupt, and make it very interactive, and engaging. To help us on this, we'll have a panel of invited participants and keynote speakers that will help share their perspectives, like I said, in the panel and on the initial discussion, and just to segue into what we're seeing in terms of leading in the age of AI in the international development sector, and the trends we're seeing, and just to create a bit of context for the discussion today. We are in this moment. Right, we are in this moment of innovation, and if you're familiar with S-curves on innovation, we are in a moment where actually we have a set of compounding S-curves on innovation. Driven by, I think, on one hand, the pace of innovation that increased tremendously, but also the usage of some of these technologies that has basically increased in an exponential way. What this is driving is a complete acceleration, a massive acceleration on the pace that we also see optimization. On one hand, here on the first graph, you can see what was the curve. This is NVIDIA data in terms of the effectiveness of their infrastructure. So we see a massive optimization on components and on silica and on the chip side. Then the second piece is driven by usage and a bit driven by this. We also see a massive optimization on the systems, on the inference systems, and how you can use computing. The truth is that the pricing and the cost is actually decreasing significantly in this, and the amount of compute you can actually utilize with the same investment you would have 1 year ago. And this is not even 1 year. This is less than 1 year. It's 9 months. It's just massive, the amount of compute you can extract today from a similar investment 9 months ago, which is part of, I would say, a maturation of the industry and a maturation of and the more the demand is growing, the more I think we will feel this effect. And I think the final one is also the models. As investments and massive investments on AI infrastructure are made, what we're seeing is models becoming a lot more effective to help augment human capacity on performing some specific tasks, and having a level of accuracy and a level of effectiveness that make them more fit for purpose in some specific contexts, and to be considered for specific business impact. What we can also witness this on what happened in a year. In less than a year, we evolved from, I think, a scenario where it was all about humans prompting into AI and getting answers from AI. And that is still there, and it's still very powerful. But immediately after that, business started feeling that this is not enough. We need to now, can we assign tasks to AI? And can AI perform those tasks in a controlled environment where we supervise, but can AI augment things in a more proactive way and not so much in a reactive, just prompting way? And so we evolved to a level 2 where through agents, we can assign tasks, and we can definitely rely on agents to perform some specific tasks. And the last evolution of this is a bit some of the autonomous agent capacity, where in some domains where risk is controlled and where capacity is there, we're actually evolving to agents that can also assign and cross-assign tasks between humans and agents in in a hybrid collaboration between technology and people. And so this, and all of this kind of happens in the span of less than a year, and I think it's a bit of a realization of what we see happening. What this is driving is essentially impact in 4 big domains, I think. And we're seeing that also specifically in the international development sector. The first one is employee experiences, and I would say it's more than just the experience. It's not about just making people happy and people's life easier. It's about improving productivity and the way we collaborate. AI is becoming a colleague in a certain sense, and a team is made of people and AI capabilities that cooperate as a team. And this is kind of transforming the complete experience as an employee and how we do productivity. The second one is on constituent engagements, especially the humanitarian sector. And we'll have an example of an organization that is actually leading thinking on this space. You can use AI as a new interface that actually removes a lot of barriers in terms of the interaction with systems, between people and systems. We also have challenges there because some of the people who need to interact with systems actually live in regions where we need different languages, we need different capabilities. But that is part of the curve of innovation that we need to bend. Then I think there's a lot, and especially in this sector, a lot of restructuring and simplifying processes and reducing costs. I think it's a common theme. I won't bother you with this. You know enough about what needs to be done here. But AI is increasingly being looked at an opportunity to improve productivity and to improve efficiencies, I would say. And then I think bending the curve of innovation. And what does this really mean? It means that AI is not just about transforming the business processes, it's transforming the innovation processes that lead to business transformation. So embedding AI on how you develop apps, on how you develop tools, on how you even rule the process of R&D and innovation is becoming a completely different way. And so today, and we see all those innovation hubs relying a lot more just not on traditional research, but on research powered by AI, on the ability of AI to help code, on the ability of AI to help develop apps shorten the cycles of idea to reality, and really bending this curve of innovation, making the time and the cost to innovate a lot more easy, which also reduces the cost of innovation and the cost to innovation, which allows for failure and retry, which is part of innovation. Finally, I think what all this is driving is we're seeing, and I'm going to say a potential for significant improvements in ROI. And today is considered that there is a potential to actually extract, based on some of the analysis of who is using, around 3.7 times the amount of investment you put in AI, you can actually get a return. And there's a potential to get a return. But getting that return is not happening across all organizations. And it's not actually being realized fully by every single organization who is investing on AI. And so there are a set of core components that are absolute, and they have little to do with technology, some of them. I think only one is around technology, which are the capabilities and the enablers that if you don't make them part of your AI strategy, it will be tremendously hard to realize those ROIs. And I think it starts with business strategy. Sometimes we're throwing AI at things, we're throwing technology at the table without understanding the problems we're trying to solve. Let's start there. I think the second one is organization and culture. You can even understand what you're trying to solve. You can have the right technology. If people are not willing or capable of using it, skilled to use it, there's a transformation around behavior and how people use technology and interact that we need to use. The aspects around applying AI in a specific context, the aspects of the technology strategy, and the technology strategy is just one thing, data. If you don't have data, there's no AI. And many times we do have an underlying problem around data. And finally, the governance piece. And I think it's been coming very loud that, charging for responsible AI use and an ethical AI use will be a fundamental element of this. So moving on, I think just wanted to give you a bit this perspective, but I think more than just me talking about these experiences, I think nothing better than having real organizations talking about their journey and how they're actually going through this. So I'd like to invite Amy. Amy is the CIO for the World Bank Group. I think the World Bank Group has been one of the leading organizations in thinking about a very coherent strategy aligned with some of the principles that I just described. And so it will be great to hear from Amy around her own experience and the perspective of the World Bank. Thank you. Amy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Standing room only. I think there's one lonely chair up here for someone who wants to race up and take it. How lucky are we to be here today? And thank you so much to Alex and to Microsoft for bringing us together to have such an important conversation. But I feel like among family and friends, there's so many friendly faces and people that I know in the audience. But we serve a similar mission, right? All of us here today are here because we've dedicated our lives to making life better for others on the planet. And I find that so inspiring, and I find the energy in this room so inspiring. And my goal today is to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at the World Bank Group. And it's not to, pat ourselves on the back, but it's really to perhaps spark an idea of how you might use one of our use cases and tweak it so that it's appropriate for how you serve your mission. We have undertaken a very aggressive 5-year digital transformation strategy, of which AI big bets are a really big part of how we deliver that. And at the World Bank, we're an open book. We are willing to share and willing to learn from you. And so I'm going to put my team on the spot, but if they can raise their hands, if you have questions or you want to connect with them, they're going to raise their hands. Yeah, those are the folks that you tackle at the end of the session. If you want to connect with us or get access to any of our materials or any of the things that we talk through. Thanks for being so willing to do that. I appreciate it. So when we think about digital transformation at the World Bank, we think about 3 big things. One is how do we use the power of technology to bridge the divide that we see and the need that we see? Secondly, how can we use emerging technologies like artificial intelligence to really make a difference in the work that we do? And then third, how can we ensure that the technology is sustainable and contributes to a livable planet? As our mission has recently expanded from not just alleviating poverty, but to alleviate poverty on a livable planet. It's a really small mission. We can knock this out really quickly. It's so complex and so exciting to be able to do that every day. We know that technology creates opportunities, and I think this is the most exciting time to be in technology because everything is riding on technology rails. And our business colleagues are waking up to the fact that we can really scale our missions using technology. There's renewed interest around data, renewed interest around all kinds of emerging technologies, and you have CEOs and presidents and managing directors openly talking about artificial intelligence. This would not have happened 3 years ago. So it's a great time to be in the driver's seat of technology, being able to help our colleagues understand how we can serve our mission more effectively with technology. So we understand that driving this positive change with technology is not just about what we can do internally, but it's also about the partnerships and the network that we participate in. And so we are all one community that can share, but we're also a community that has strong partnerships in technology and other industries that can really advance our missions. When we think about our digital transformation strategy, we wanted to link it very closely to our mission, which are the strategy of how we would execute our mission, both in our headquarters and in all of our country offices. And for a long time, we've used AI. Like many of you, we've used narrow AI for transaction processing for at least a decade. But recently, we have developed an AI strategy, as many of you have, an AI framework, as many of you have, But what I'm especially proud of is that we've developed a very succinct vision for AI. And we talk about it, and it's very easy to just sort of like rattle it off in the elevator, but it is accelerate, deepen, and sustain development impact. That's the only reason why we want to use AI. Accelerate, deepen, sustain development impact. And if a use case comes across our desk that does not accelerate, deepen, or sustain development impact, we say no. Because we have to say no, because we want to accelerate, deepen, and sustain development impact. That's what it's all about for us as we live our mission every day. In addition to some generative AI that we've done, so for example, like some of you, we've created our own sort of ChatGPT instance that uses our own data to answer questions. We also took on a very aggressive implementation of Microsoft Copilot. So all of our staff have Microsoft Copilot available for their use. We required within a certain time period that all staff take a responsible use of AI course along with that deployment. And then we check for usage to ensure that we're getting investment or we're getting value for the investment that we're making. But we're finding really strong adoption and high usage statistics from our users with Microsoft Copilot. They're using it for interesting things. We have a prompt of the day, which our product owner publishes every day, and some of them have been honestly surprising to me how good the context that I've received back. So, for example, they wrote a prompt of the day about be my personal executive coach, look at my emails and my chats and tell me how I can be communicating with my staff better. And that thing did not hold back. I mean, it told me exactly what I needed to be doing differently. So it's really quite powerful. But we're using it in lots of different ways. So we use it, for example, we have a very strong jobs focus. We understand that jobs is a way that provides not only prosperity but dignity to every person, and so we're using AI to analyze labor market data, even informal data points, so that we can predict future skill needs by region or by country. This allows us to be more responsive in training programs and educational interventions, so that we can help countries prepare and equip for the jobs of tomorrow. Our education sector experts have been evaluating AI tools that allow for instant feedback and tailoring and learning for individual learners so that they can get the most of their learning time and learning investment, and so that they can, again, prepare for the jobs of the future. We're also using AI to strengthen transparency and accountability in public administration, in taxation systems, even in social welfare programs. So I know many of us are looking at how we can use AI to do better and less time-consuming auditing, and so we're doing some of that as well. We're always looking to figure out how we balance the innovation that we want to do with AI with accountability, and so I like the fact that we can have an AI program and then a self-auditing program on the back end of that to ensure that we're using it responsibly. We know, of course, that AI doesn't work without data, as you said, Alex, but also doesn't work without electricity. And so in many of our countries, we have issues with consistent available electricity. I'm really proud that we have undertaken, along with African Development Bank, a program called M300, which promises to bring electricity to 300 million sub-Saharan Africans by 2030, which is right around the corner. I'm very excited about that. There's over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa that don't have access to electricity. So as we think about the foundational requirements for AI, along with data, how do we ensure that we have electricity or power so that these people can also have access to the tools that we have? When we think about job creation, this is a very sobering statistic. It was to me the first time that I heard it. And that's over the next decade. So in the next 10 years, 1.2 billion with a B, 1.2 billion young people will come into the age of career. So they'll be at a job appropriate age. So 1.2 billion. but we're only expected to create 420 million jobs. We have a massive gap to close in job creation for young people so that they have dignity and purpose and that they can enjoy prosperity. And so we're thinking about how we can use AI to help with job creation, not only the act of creating AI, but can we use AI to create more agriculture jobs, as an example? We've created an app that allows farmers in Uttar Pradesh to understand what kind of fertilizer and intervention they need on their crops so that they have a larger yield on their harvest and they can employ more people to harvest their fields. We have an interest in tourism as an example, and I think of that as a great place to insert some AI for job creation. If you were, say, a small eco-resort in a developing country, without a massive marketing budget or a massive social media budget, how would you even get onto anyone's radar? But now I could use, as a user, I could be using ChatGPT, find me a great eco-resort in Africa. It could suggest that resort, that the owner of that resort could have a chatbot that speaks in the language of that potential client, answering questions in the middle of the night, and suggesting perhaps additional activities or restaurant experiences, et cetera, for the whole community, building a whole community and ecosystem of jobs, just because AI empowered a user across the world to be able to see this resort. So I'm really excited about these opportunities. We're always going to have new and exciting things on the horizon. The one thing that I've loved about my IT career is that it's always something new, right? There's always the next wave of innovation. Everyone says, what are you going to do when the transformation's done? That's actually never happened. I've never finished transformation because there's always something really exciting right after that wave. But I think it's important that we support our organizations with not only strong leadership, but a really strong sense of how we're going to create these digital backbones, how we're going to use AI responsibly, how we can collaborate with each other so that we're not repeating and recreating the wheel, and so that we can all collectively serve the mission of serving our planet more effectively. So thank you so much for your time today. I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be putting on 3 hats over the next hour and a half. I've actually got hats here, but Alex told me that this room might not like hats, actually. So if you'd like some hats, make some sound. Okay. Well, this is my first hat. So we're going to be looking at agents in action, and this is how I feel like nowadays, like Mario running around, building around agents for UN folks in there. But let me start with the 3 agents I'm going to show you today, where they started off. So maybe I'll raise your hand if whatever job you're doing right now is your dream job, or you joined it to maybe cheesy change the world. Yeah, look around yourself, right? In the room as well. This is what I love about this community. So I work in the Tech for Social Impact team at Microsoft and get to meet people like you who really care about their job. And one person that I met in Nairobi actually last year, he was from a field office which had just about five people in there. He said when he was growing up, he'd see this UN staff coming in with their dresses, and it was his dream. He knew that this is what he was going to do. So when he got graduated, got the best possible sort of qualifications, he applied 7 years in a row, did not get a job. But finally he did. And then, this was John when I met him a couple of years ago, right? So he's like, there's so much to do. There is a lot of data as well, but I really struggle. We just don't have the systems in place. We don't have the resources in place. And whenever there's lesser resources, like we are seeing in the sector right now, technology is the bit that comes in to help us out as well. So with that, like, let's look at the challenges which John gave us, right? So he said that one of the things he's trying to do is get people placed from the East African countries, and he's got 40,000 people in his databases, which is spread around in Excel sheets and an Access database, and then he's got jobs, which are 10,000 jobs that are open in this sector as well. So can technology help him out in there? So with that, let's start to look at the first possible scenario. So a lot of work I do right now nowadays ends up being just like the normal language that we all speak. So, what John gave me was like, okay, can you look at the ILO and UNEP green job reports from the last 3 years? Show me which countries have the most green job openings for youth, what skills are required, average salaries, and visa-friendly countries as well. Now you could go in with, whatever your favorite large language model is. You can go ahead and start to ask this information, and it'll already come up with a decent sort of a response for you, right? And a lot of people are starting to get used to this. This already, maybe 2 years ago, would have taken John a really long time in terms of going up to 40 different websites and looking at a little bit of information in there. It's telling him that Kenya has a lot of jobs for green. What are the skills required? But if you look at it a little bit more detail, this is quite basic, right? Probably I'd say this is a 7th or 8th grader sort of a work. Now, we've got an agent called Researcher, which, if you've got Copilot, this is something you get access to, one of those hidden capabilities that when people discover it, they have that aha moment around, okay, this is where I see AI shifting every single thing. Now, if I go and ask that same query from Researcher is a tool which uses the advanced reasoning models. It'll go ahead and review the results. It'll read the results. It's analyze those results. And then based on that, it'll come up with some insights. And this can take a really long time as well, right? So first, now we moved over from an 8th grader in Copilot to maybe someone like an intern who's just graduated, right? So he'll ask you some questions, right? He's like, okay, what detailed report are you looking for, specific countries? And I can say that focus on East Africa. So now it'll start to look through thousands of articles, right? And it remembers what I told it about ILO and UNEP. It'll look through those. And this takes about 15 minutes, right? So I ran this in the background just about an hour ago. So you guys can look at the process that it follows. How many of you have tried a reasoning sort of an agent? Raise your hands. Great, pretty well-informed room in here, right? So for those of you who haven't, this is one thing you should go ahead and try out in whatever tool is authorized in your organization. So what a reasoning tool does, right? At the top, it starts to pull together the research. It breaks down the tasks. It identifies certain relevant reports. And then it starts to figure out, okay, what can I search for? Green jobs for youth in Africa. I can look at UNEP, ILO, but also UNICEF because they work together to publish out these green jobs for Youth Pact. Then it went through and looked through an IRENA report, looked at more green job opportunities, looked through other sources, looked at Kenya's plan. Then it started to analyze the visa-friendly policies for everything. And imagine now, like if you were actually, what you're getting here is what we call intelligence on tap. When you've got limited resources, there's only certain tasks you can outsource. But imagine if you could document now and figure out what you want to carry out, you've got the tools in place that can help you accelerate the impact that you want, right? So it went through the entire activity and then came out with this sort of a result, right? So first, Kenya is leading. Then it told me about what are the pay spans per wide range. It figures out that, okay, a green job pays almost 4 times as much as an agricultural job, right? So it walked me through that. It's got an executive summary for me. Told me about something, a new terminology I wasn't aware of, NEET, Youth Not in Employment, Education or Training. How many people are in there? The fact that there are going to be 24 million green jobs by 2030 and 75 million by 2050. So if I'm working on a program, running a seminar, telling young people to sign up for green jobs, I've got more data in there. Goes through, which countries are standing out, what sectors are coming up more and more, waste management, circular economy. And then for each of those, it has got statistics for me with sources behind it as well. And then, coming up with, for each of these sectors, what are my typical annual salaries as well? And what are my visa-friendly countries? And whereas, where I will struggle with visa and work permits as well. And then at the bottom, it's given me all the sources, right? Of course, the ILO and UNEP organizations which I told it about, but then it went and looked at Dalberg as well, and IRENA, which it uncovered as part of itself, right? So as if I go back and look at in the past, 2 years ago, if John had to carry out this sort of activity, he would have had to wait and apply for a program fund. But now he has a lot more capacity. He can have a few of these reports running pretty much every night before he goes in, and he comes in the morning, and it accelerates whatever he's doing. Let's look at the second example. Another challenge he faces is that it's 15 different countries that he supports the youth in. There are different visa requirements. There's different policy requirements from different countries as well. But his colleagues, when he joined the organization, they've been working on this. They've collected the right reports. There's actually a SharePoint folder where you can go in and start to review these different reports in there. Some of them are ILO reports around what's happening with the green economy. Some of them are, this is a 123-page report about assessing green jobs potential in developing countries, a practitioner guide, right? So, and a few other reports like this. Now, when John joined, this was one of the programs he was working on. If he wanted to really make sure that he's skilling up on all the work that has been done, right, with different organizations that have figured out what are the best ways to promote green jobs, what are the policies in place. Now, him to be an expert on this is requiring him to read all of these documents. And that takes a little bit of time. So one thing that people request us a lot is that can you make a chat GPT for us based on certain documents that we work with on a day-to-day basis, and make it so easy that our people out in the field who've never worked with any sort of coding or programming before can go ahead and build this out. So with Copilot, one of the things we're doing is we're, of course, making it available for everyone, the free version, which can access just the internet. And then you've got the ability to create your own agents on top of your specific documents as well. So people who've got a Copilot license or not, they'll see this option called Create an Agent. What this allows you to do is, I like to think of it as, just a young colleague who's joining in my team, who's not an expert on this, but if I give him instructions that, okay, go read all of these documents, or go check out this information on this website, or there's often quite a lot speech writers. This is how I've written speeches in the past, so create a new speech on the basis of this, right? These are all agents that people have built with us in the last 6 months. So I come in here with Create an Agent, and I'm going to say that, hey, you're a green jobs navigator, and you help me with job placements. And then you've read all of these documents that I got from ILO and UNEP in there. So this is what I tell Agent Builder, that I want you to create a persona that does this thing really well. So first it comes up with the name, and on the right-hand side, it understands the language that I'm speaking. I can check for eligibility, I can check for green job requirements, I can refer to these documents, and so on and so forth. I can give it more feedback, but just with these 6 odd words in there, I can switch over now to my configure tab in here, where it has come up with various instructions. So a lot of work that we've been doing with different UN organizations here in Geneva, New York, Rome, is working with them into telling them how to have instructions so that a system understands and produces the same results consistently for you. The first agent that I'm building out, you guys can go back and build it out in 5 minutes. But before you put it in production, you'll probably need 3 or 4 iterations where you work through with these instructions in there. And then this is almost like a new skill that people are developing. There's a few articles we've written along for this as well. But in this case, I'm going to click on this knowledge area. I'm going to go over to the folder where I had all of these green job documents in there. And I'm going to ask this agent to just read and become an expert magically in all of these reports. I'll come in here and click create. And now in the background, it's if you've built out chatbots, I know some people in the room who've built chatbots or agents before. Maybe just raise your hands if you've built some sort of an agent. Yeah, there you go. So if you've built agents in the past, what you've done is probably built up your own, manage your own RAG pipeline, your optimization, the index, the embeddings in there. But now the technology is becoming easier, right? So we just create a semantic index that works with large language models, and you're able to ask questions on top of that. So in this case, I tried to write down a couple of advanced queries. Maybe the first query was, can you create a checklist of documents a Kenyan youth needs when applying for work abroad, and tie it with the ILO convention that we have as well. So now this agent is reading through those documents that I have, and then coming up with the individual references for me, and then based on that coming up with the documents that are required. Right, I can go in further and I can say that, okay, what are the target groups used in France's energy efficiency training program? Because as I place people over and I organize training for them, I want to be aware about what's happening in there, right? So it founds a document where it has read through that, and then it comes up with more details for me. Next up, the main thing which I want to get to by the end of this hour, right, is I want to create a one-pager to convince a training center in Lagos to add a circular economy course in there. So now it has the whole context of these different reports, the requirements, the number of people, and based on that, it comes up with a proposal, which I'm going to now quickly take on the persona of a project manager and bring in an AI agent in there that's going to help me organize training as well. So let's go back. The third challenge was the coordination challenge. So now I've got 500 youth who've signed up. I've got a placement program for them as well, but I need to organize training for them. Right, this is another thing that would take me a fair bit of time in the past. I'll be managing this out, the set of tasks in there as well. So let me go over now to something called Planner. And inside Planner, now we've got another autonomous agents, right? So 1 year ago, we were building agents that are answering things for us. Now agents are doing things for us, right? So I've got a plan with project manager. I'll call this AI skills program. And then I'm going to give it the requirements for my project. I'm on my tiny hotspot here. I'm really glad that the live demos have worked out all okay so far. Okay. So as I'm creating a program, what I've told it is, I want you to schedule AI skills assessment for 500 youth and coordinate with 3 training centers and ensure we meet our Q2 targets, right? I can add it for the documents that I have that could help it based on previous project plans and project documents. But with this, it has enough information to start to plan out the tasks for me, right? So it's taking a little bit of time here. So I'll open up a planner that I have in the background. It's like it was listening. You're doing great so far.
He was listening.
Okay. So what you'll see in here is now first I've got a set of skills-based program and tasks that have been generated for me, right? That's that's good. You've probably tried this out in ChatGPT or Copilot as well. But the next step that I'm able to do is give all of these tasks over to the project manager agent to do these tasks as well, right? So if you remember, I wanted to create a skilling plan. I wanted to find out training providers for me. Now, if you understand an AI model that can oh, I didn't complete that. I want to assign it. So I'm going to go ahead and assign all of these tasks over to the project manager. So it tries to figure out now, just as an overeager intern that tries to please you. And about like 2 years ago, this used to be pretty irritating. But now technology is getting better wherein it actually works, right? So it went through, and the first task it came out was like, I want to create an assessment schedule and logistics plan for 500 youth, right? And then project manager agent is telling me with the screen that I've done this, I've assigned this back to you because this is all I can do. at this point in my evolution. So it's given me an update as well, right? So it's telling me that, hey, I developed and finalized a comprehensive assessment schedule. I came up with the objectives. This is the assessment schedule I came up with. I created candidate allocation plans. I created a logistics plan. And then I came up with key milestones. And then it's got all the references for me for each of these tasks that it has completed as well. The second task, it's telling me that, hey, this is dependent on you completing the first task. So I'm waiting for you to do something there. The second task was around finding logistics in there. So again, it went ahead and found 3 organizations in Lagos, which have got training facilities and program around AI as well. It's telling me about assistive technology that's present in there. It's telling me that, okay, how many computers that those 3 organizations have. And again, now I can review this and then figure out as to, which one of these I want to select and take forward as well. And I've got Copilot on one side, which I can always ask to go ahead and make changes as I need along with as well. All right, so going back to John, right? So I've changed John's name, by the way. If you want to know John, he's a photographer as well, and I can share his Instagram with you. But if we think back on John, right? So first, we've been able to help him with research. We've been able to create an agent that could read all his policy documents. Then we were able to start to plan out a project and execute tasks for him as well. Another challenge that John has is there's 15 different languages that he supports. And even though he speaks like 4 different languages, he still struggles with a little bit of understanding some languages. So one tool that we've launched, again, inside Teams is a real-time interpretation tool. And I want to play a 1-minute video of this.
Hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I have something I want to test out with you today. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I already tested it and it's awesome.
Oh my God. Okay, so I want to test it because I haven't tested this. So I'm coming here under language and speech and turn on AI interpreter. So I want to listen to this in English. So now you can, I guess if you were to speak in Italian, I would hear you in English.
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
So tell me about your travels to United States of America in Italian, please.
Allora, settimana scorsa sono stato a Seattle per l'evento Tech Connect, che era l'evento interno di formazione di Microsoft. So last week I was in Seattle for the Tech Connect event. Ho tenuto 3 lauree, which was the internal training event of Microsoft for the CSU. 5.000 persone. Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Oh my God, keep talking.
I do get excited with technology, as you can see there. So closing off with John, right? So now this is the future with John, where we want him to be. We want everyone who dreams about changing the world, giving them the tools in place, which is something that technology can provide as well. So as you can see, I put on my new hat, trying to make up on time as well. And we are ready to welcome our panelists on the stage. We've got incredible people. Shirin, who's the CIO at IMF. If you guys want to come up on the stage now. We've got Samir from UNICC. And Silvan, I'm still trying to make sure I'm pronouncing your name well. If you guys can, please come over to the stage. Yours is working okay as well. Perfect. So first, thank you. I feel first overwhelmed sitting with such incredible, esteemed colleagues in here. So I thought of like, okay, what would make it fun for me? Now that I'm nervous, so how can I make it fun? So I thought of asking you, Shirin, maybe we'll start with you. Describe your role to us. What gets you jumping out of bed about your role? And then maybe also like an aha moment that you had with AI in the last year.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shireen Hamid. I'm the Chief Information Officer and Director for the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Been with the IMF for about 3.5 years, but You know, for someone who started in private sector, so I did start my career in the private sector, I spent the last 20 years with multilaterals. So imagine my career journey after private sector going into our UNDP, my 11 years, all right, an international financial institution, which is the Asian Development Bank. And then here I am with the IMF. So if you are committed to making global impact, so you can have an idea in terms of why I've stayed within the system with an appreciation for the complexity, the bureaucracy, and all of the amazing challenges, but at the same time, feeling very rewarded when you can make that value and impact at the end of the day. So for me, you know, it is always about making impact. Impact is a very critical component in terms of what keeps me awake, what excites me, what challenges me, and you know, and what drives me in terms of ensuring that I guess I keep awake. You know, my poor husband. But in reality, you know, as we evolve over the years, you know, whether it was about the 3-tier architecture or whether it's about the cloud journey, and now we're into the AI journey. And the pace of the AI journey, as you all are starting to see, is incredibly fast, right? We're not talking about, you know, something where, you know, 3 years, 5 years is still going to stick. The impact is incredulously fast, to a point that I'm not even sure. In fact, we had a closed door discussion today with the multilaterals, and we basically said that, you know, meeting 6 months a year is maybe not right, because in 3 months, something is going to change, and indeed it's going to change. In the fund, we've used AI for about, you know, 10 years before generative AI can come in, all right? I call it my monolithic AI. And we've used that for all the various use cases. So I have a very different mandate than most of the development space, and I'm very, very familiar with the development space. Within the fund, 3 mandates. It's about macroeconomic and financial stability. So we're probably the only one that's out there in the field that basically, you know, go into our 191 member countries, and we audit them. But we are the auditor to make sure that you're financially and macroeconomically sound as a country, making sure that everybody has a job, making sure that, you know, at the end of the day, the livelihood of individuals at the end of the day continue to evolve and grow. The second part is, and I have to be very careful about this because sometimes they don't like me to use the word, but I'll use it in this term, if I may. It's called lenders of last resort. But nobody wants to lend a country, but it's super critical to keep them alive, then you come to the IMF and we'll lend you, right? And we have different, you know, lending rates depending on your position and everything else to be able to do that. And then the third role of the IMF is to ensure that we build capacity. We talk about technology, but even in the macroeconomic space, we have to ensure that every country, especially our members, have the capacity to ensure that, you know, we sustain that macroeconomic and financial stability. So what keeps me awake is to ensure that, hey, in an organization that I'm parachuted in, right, they have the organizational structure to benefit from technology and the advancement in technology, whatever it is, right? Whether it's cloud, whether it's right now AI. And then second is to ensure that you have the organizational structure and the skills and the capacity to do so. And don't forget that many of us wants to actually put everything and tie them in a bow, in a very pretty bow, to make sure that everything works together. And I'll tell you, sometimes it doesn't work that way. If you try and put that bow tie, it'll take forever for you to get to that adoption stage. Sometimes it requires experimentation. And that's one thing I love about AI. AI allows you to actually generate a sandbox, do a proof of concept, pilot, try. You know, you saw the product earlier, right? Hey, now you can do researcher. Now you can do studio. You can play around in terms of what the art of possibility is in terms of creating agents and stuff like that. So in the fun, you know, is the ability for my team to actually be able to, hey, create our own first AI chatbot using Azure. Thank you very much for the environment. Really quick. We did that within less than 9 months of the first ChatGPT that was released. And I'll tell you that I was very afraid to actually share that across the fund because you want to make sure that we have trusted data in the fund. But the enthusiasm went rocket sky high and says like, no, we'll test and we'll give you feedback along the way. Just can I have that tool? Similarly, we're in the process of rolling out Copilot. And it's amazing in terms of the storytelling that we have from our users. Practically every one of them basically comes back and say, right, at least an hour, 2 hours of productivity a week, right? And I would say that in the fund, we're very risk averse, so we'll give you the lowest data point, right, to make sure that, we manage expectations. But can you imagine the other possibilities? We have more than 150 use cases when we ask for a call to action. We don't ask anymore because, at the end of the day, we have to fulfill the process. So for us is to make sure that we put all the ingredients so that we can cook them and put them and make sure that they're delicious at the end of the day, right? That includes ensuring that we have governance in place, we have the data in place, the data governance that is in place, and we have all of the necessary processes to ensure successful delivery. Now, for those of you who are very interested in global impact, what AI can do, what the fund has done is created and curated data across 8 different institutions, including the UN, ILO, UNCTAD, and World Bank, UPU, and a few others, right? You can actually go to a website. It's called the AI Preparedness Index. It's got data points on 4 broad categories on whether you are or you are not ready for AI. And if you're not, what you need to do to get there. So it does do ranking of about 174 countries, whether it's about having the right infrastructure in place, whether you have the human skills, the people and the capacity to do so, whether you have the ingredients to innovate, and then finally, obviously, from a regulatory and ethics point of view to make sure that data privacy, governance is all in place. So those are the ingredients that you need to make sure that you're successful. So let me just stop there.
That's incredible. I could listen to you all hour and have so many follow-up questions, but we'll have to wait a little bit. I'd like to go deeper on the overall, how you're experimenting freely, moving over from that individuals to business process. But we'll come back. We've got Samir here, which has been a huge week for you guys. Monday something happened. You can tell us about that, but please tell us what do you do? What gets you up in the morning?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I feel like of everybody here, we are the geeks in the room, really. So we are designed to be the technology shared service function for the entire UN system and beyond. So we've been around 54 years. So back when mainframe was cutting edge, we were created. So we've gone through a few iterations, a few generations of evolution. And at this point, I'm sitting with 2 of my board members, in fact, my vice chairs. Yes, which I didn't realize till right now. I'm like, wait. So these are my bosses that you see here.
Your words.
So I have to be very careful what I say. Right? So the entire system is my board. We are accountable to them, and we build capabilities that we believe are meaningful to them, that are useful to them. And as all of us know, and you've heard from you, Jivtesh, and from Shireen and others, AI is very impactful, but also it's moving very, very fast. So our goal is to say, how do we build common capabilities so we can bring our entire community of partners along? So what we're looking at is what have some of the leading partners you heard from World Bank, which is also our partner, IMF, UNHCR, when they took the lead with which I'll talk about in a bit, with innovating and building bots. How can others benefit from it? So that we shorten their learning curve, we get them to output and to productive, meaningful AI that much faster. So we are not domain experts in any one of these domains. So I'm glad I heard Shireen because I learned a lot, right? Because I'm not an expert in finance, and neither am I in development, neither am I in refugees. But we're trying to say, how can we build those building blocks that help each one of them get there faster? And I have no shame in saying, we don't have to build everything ourselves. If somebody else has built it, can we scale it? Can we offer it to others? And that adds a lot of value. And as you all know, times are tough in the multilateral system. So wherever we can learn, reshare, reuse, so much the better. Because at the end of the day, each of my partners I know is heads down trying to say, how can I do more with a lot less now. So if we can add a few ingredients to that mix and get them to that outcome faster, we feel we've done our job well. So to your question of what happened on Monday is about a year ago, our board, and they were both in the room, I remember, in Bangkok, and I see several other board members in the room. They said, this is your new strategic framework. This is what you need to do for the next 6 years. And one big pillar, obviously, was AI. So go forth and build AI capabilities. Sounds great. What does it mean? So we had to go back to the drawing board, think a little bit, and then we went down and spoke to all of our partners and said, what do you really need from us? What are you doing well yourselves? Where can we add value? So we did a series of interviews and discussions, and we kind of nailed down 3 or 4 areas that they said start from here. And that's what we've announced on Monday, is the capabilities that are kind of the starter kit, or the framework of capabilities that we can start to offer to our partners. And as time evolves, as AI evolves, we're all on this journey together. There may be newer areas where partners say, hey, now I need you to step in here. But just in the last 1 week, and actually in the last 2 days, I've had multiple partners, including the one sitting next to me, who have said, we have built a whole bunch of, we've architected very complicated agents, a multi-tiered architecture. And I don't want to steal Shireen's thunder, but some of those are clearly reusable. So we become that in-house repository to say, take all of these pre-built, prefabricated solutions and see if anybody else can benefit from it. So I see us in that case as almost like the librarian. We are not writing these books, somebody else is. In fact, all of our partners are writing the books. We are keeping a copy in-house. So if somebody else needs it, we can quickly give it to them and help jumpstart their journey.
I like that librarian analogy. Now I'll have that in mind thinking of you and ICC.
We're the librarians.
Thank you. I'll have follow-up questions for you as well, of course, around some of the common solutions you're seeing across different organizations. But yeah, first we'll go over to Silvan. UNHCR, of course, you guys have been at the forefronts with digital technology and opening up those digital channels for a long time. How is the AI world, changing things for the delicate communities that you serve? But first, yeah, what do you do? What gets you up in the morning? Yeah, please.
Thank you. So thank you for having us here. A very exciting venue and topic to talk about. So I'm Sylvain Saint-Pierre. I'm the CIO of UNHCR. Prior to that, I was basically filling in for Shireen's shoes, right, at UNDP. So we share a common experience there. And I've worked in industry quite a bit before then and so on. Very excited to be here. So usually what gets me up in the morning is my dog, right? So, and after a couple of coffees, I think what really motivates me to pursue the day is really I have this passion to build teams that help effectively colleagues better use technology and transform organizations so they become better at what they do. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. And I'm super excited about the mandate we serve, right? So to help those that have been forcibly displaced, to bring back their dignity, their ability to function in society, and help them basically regain access to their livelihood. And we see technology as a very exciting approach, especially with AI. It opens up very different ways of engaging, which you don't have to know too much anymore, as you've shown, right? So if you can interact with technology using the natural language, you can have simultaneous translation, you can start to offer advice offline and so on and so forth. So very, very exciting in terms of how we can engage with these communities in a much better, smarter way. But also, it will help us, and we see it already. We have Azure Fabric, product, I guess, the next edition, and the Copilot capabilities, and they are quite amazing. Now we're starting to play with, talking with your information, like interacting with it, without understanding how to use structured query language, and being able to ask it for insights, and this is very, very exciting. We showed that not that particular feature, but the data platform to High Commissioner very recently, and now we have all our data in one place, and we have the proper processes to validate it, curate it, make sure that it's of good quality. When you start to interact with it this way, what used to take literally sometimes days or weeks to get a piece of information, which sometimes may even have contradicting information, right, from different sources, and now it's right in front of you in seconds, right? So it completely changes the way we can interact with the communities we serve, but also how we operate internally. And this is very exciting, right? From being able to place resources more effectively where they needed through predictive analytics, kind of trying to see what's happening out there in front of us, to be in a better position to plan with the help of these tools, and also to increase the integrity of what we do, right? Detecting fraud more easily and so on and so forth. So very, very exciting.
So, and Sylvan, and maybe we'll go back this way. You've led like really big ERP transformation projects as well, and big digital transformation projects. But the pace of innovation that I see right now is unparalleled. So how are you thinking through things in this, technology huge uptake that we are seeing right now?
Yeah, I think the introduction of change now is very, very different, right? Comparing to, you mentioned ERP platforms. I mean, those are a big, heavy change, just like AI is. We introduce that into organization. And many things are the same in many respects, right? So obviously leadership commitment in terms of, that you can proceed, move forward, very, very important. Change management, having good process in place, because technology without people using it is not very useful, right? So helping people change the way they work, right? So that we can create more value, whatever your value definition might be. Those are very, let's say, common, I would say, elements that you find from an AI project to a traditional ERP. However, AI is very different. I think the pace at which it moves is very, very different. Like an ERP is almost looking at the movement of, the planets, so type of thing. It's very, very slow. Huh? It's very, very expensive. It's not AI, it's light speed, right? So it's very different. The experimentation, the way, the time it takes also for people to experiment with it and see value from it. On the flip side of that, though, it's kind of difficult to explain the need for the investment and the return of it, right? So it's not so easy.
Yeah, how do you compare like blankets given to refugees with investment in AI? How do you go about making that comparison or case?
Exactly. I think for us, it's really about we can't see it as a cost. It's really an investment. So let's say in the case of the blanket example, with AI, we'll be able to probably buy blankets at the right time for the right place, the right moment, for the right use case. Where right now we're maybe guessing a little bit, right, in terms of when to buy them. I mean, we may not make full use of the resources we have as best as we want them to be. So it's a very, very different way to go about it.
Amazing, thank you. Sameer, back to you on, like you've mentioned, Unify HR is one of the solutions that a lot of organizations are using. Do you have that any lessons learned from that, as well as other, you've got a room full of people, other common solutions that you feel they're ripe to be used by multiple organizations?
Certainly. So even though, as I spoke earlier, each organization has their domain-specific challenges that they build AI for, and there are common themes across the board. And Unify HR was a great example. So again, UNHCR spearheaded this. They drove this initiative. They started building a bot to support our HR colleagues with all the complex cases that they have to deal with. And when they discussed it across the HR network, everybody said, this is brilliant. How do I get one of these? Right? So then and that was a smart thing, credit to UNHCR and to the HR network, to say rather than everybody copying and pasting and then building their own version, they said, let's just build one. So of course, then they called us and said, can you step in, take what UNHCR has built and scale this up and make it work for everybody? So pretty soon we went from 1 to 13 organizations. So we used the Microsoft stack, or HCR has started on the Microsoft stack, we built on it. And lots of lessons learned along the way, but in simple English, to my knowledge, and again,
you have the vice chair sitting on your
side. Yes, I have to.
Oh,
and by the way, I just had this aha moment that we are sitting in the house of my chair. ITU is the chair, yeah. So I have to be extremely careful what I say. Yes, absolutely. And I see about 4 or 5 board members across the table, so yeah, I have to be very careful about every word. No, but joking apart, I think to cross that bridge from a great idea to a functioning pilot to a production system, that's a very long bridge. Lots of twists and turns, or maybe I'm mixing metaphors here, right? And we had to cross that journey together. because you have to bring HR colleagues from 13 organizations and say, is this working for you? Right? And then you realize the second order, third order problems are that the HR rules are slightly different from every one organization to the next, from one country to the next. So you have to factor all of that in to say what you're building will work. And depending on who's asking the question, the answer should come back correctly. So if it's a UNHCR colleague answering, it should actually only look at UNHCR policies and give the right answer. But if it's somebody else, it should, again, give them the appropriate response. And I know it's a lesson we learn again and again in tech, but the other lesson we learned is perfection is the enemy of good. So we don't need to get to 100%. So after many, many iterations, and every time we fine-tuned and trained and retrained, we got better and better and better. So we went from, I don't know, 50, 60, 70, 80, 85%. And then it became harder and harder, right, to improve it, given what the technology was a year ago. So maybe now we could, so it's moving so fast. But we said, you know what, that's good enough. The real complex use cases is where an HR official really needs to be involved, because it's not clear. What is the question? What are the challenges? If somebody is going on maternity leave and they have so many years of service, and et cetera, there are many factors to consider. This is where the AI agent should say, this is when you call your HR colleague and speak to them.
That's a great perspective.
Right? So that was a great aha moment for us, and to say, you know what, this is actually ready to go. It's production grade, let's deploy it with the right guardrails to say this is when it can be deployed. And quickly on your second point, so now that we start looking at this from, we call it the AI hub, but to say where are the areas, where are the domains where we can build common services, there's some really interesting examples that are coming up. So one is, again, with UNHCR and others, we built a set of payment trails, which are used to disperse payments around the world. Billions of dollars in payments are dispersed now through that channel. So now the CFOs are involved here, or the controllers and treasurers. So they say, look, if you're all sending money to country A, and now it's, I don't remember the number, let's say close to 10 organizations, maybe more, how can we optimize the cash flow? Let's bring in AI. So kind of like, how do you optimize, when do you buy the blankets, when do you deliver them? This is a matter of how do you take the money you have, how do you do the FX at the right time and make it one single transaction, and so that you save on all the transaction fees and you optimize the FX rates.
What's the pilot name of this project?
We don't have a name yet, sorry.
Suggestions are welcome.
Ask AI.
Ask AI, okay. So we were thinking about it, but that's another great use case of a common solution. That can be built and the entire system can benefit from it, right? Because not everybody, but large parts of the system do the same job where they're dispersing payments around the world for their substantive mission, but now we can bring it all together and do it once and then have really smart AI that solves the problem for everybody in one go.
Okay, last quick question from Sharon, and then we're going to move over to the AI game show. I'll need the monitor back on for that. So Sharon, back to that question around IMF has been on that slightly accelerated journey compared to other organizations with personal productivity. How are you scaling it across the organization? And because I did background research, like Singapore, the fact that, how much of the policies and regulations that you grew up with in terms of Singapore, does that influence with how you adopt AI right now, where regulations and policies are so important?
Okay, wear two hats, right? Yeah. So one, citizen of Singapore. So he's asking me, as a citizen of Singapore, what do you feel in terms of readiness of the country to ensure that, the citizens are actually moving in the right direction? So that's a surprise question. I wasn't prepared to answer that piece. So I'll go along the way with that. But I can tell you that, being a citizen of Singapore in the 80s, right? The country is pretty advanced in terms of the government actually having a vision in terms of where it needs to land. If anybody knows about Singapore, it's a very tiny island, hardly any natural resources. And we rely on everybody's infrastructure to actually be able to succeed. So to do that, people is a very, very key component in ensuring that the people, right, you pay attention to that. And I remember in the 80s, because I was actually a student then, where they basically says like, you know what, digital is actually going to be the next big thing. This is in the 80s. And in order to actually do this, and remember in the 80s, Many of us will still have that big computer, right, with a 5.25-inch, disc. Okay, some young folks don't know what I'm talking about, but they do exist, right? But at the same time, is to make sure that the whole of the country actually moves along. There was a whole entire exercise that basically says, how are we going to prepare the country into a digital world? The government spent money to make sure that the whole of government actually learns how to use, spreadsheets, how to use database, how to actually use a Word, a productivity document, and how can you actually, what are the various use cases for digital in that space? This is in the 80s, folks, right? And move far along, 2 years ago when I met with the Minister of Infocom in Singapore, they already had an AI strategy 10 years ago. They had an AI strategy 10 years ago. And part of the AI strategy was to ensure, again, people move in this journey and embrace, and we have a lot of aging population in Singapore. So as a result, is how do you bridge the divide? Is to ensure that the skilling and upskilling, occurs, and if you have to reinvent yourself, how do you reinvent yourself in that whole entire journey? So there's a whole entire program on how to upskill and reskill, right? With a whole entire catalog and databases that anyone and everyone in Singapore, as a Singaporean, you're entitled to do so. So it is pretty advanced in that stage in terms of being, if you are, representing a country and so on, you might want to actually take a look. And I go back to the preparedness index, right? Take a look at where you are in the journey and what you need to actually do in terms of getting your house in order to get onto this stage. But I also want to be able to caution you, is like, you don't have to put everything, you don't have to line up all the ducks, right? And I'll give you an example. If you are in a small country, and we actually did this experiment, right? For a small country who's basically trying to find revenue to actually be able to sustain themselves and have that macroeconomic and financial stability. They don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the talent, they don't have the skill sets to be able to do that. And they're like, okay, I'm far along behind, and how can I actually bring ourselves into this journey? So for us, we facilitate some of this conversation. We use tools that you can actually plug and play that allows you to actually say, hey, you actually sit on a data, but you may not be able to know how to use that data effectively. Let me show you. So we don't want to actually build a technology. We're not in, the fun is not in that space, but we can actually show you how to actually build a proof of concept, right? Using your data, and within a week, I can tell you that the Director General of this small little country, is it little, maybe not little, small country, in terms of how can you use data, right, to actually harness that data and actually collect additional revenue. The Director General was so happy and so excited. And she's like, how do I scale this? Now, so scaling is not about our job. We were just showing you the potential out of the possibility. The next steps, where you put all the necessary guardrails and governance and scaling that needs to get done, right? We actually work with partners. So we said, like, okay, you need the funding to actually develop the technology and scale the technology. We work with partners like the World Bank, reach out to the World Bank, reach out to all the various institutions to actually to get the capacity for you to actually scale the product. So that's the beauty of some of these journeys that we are going through, because
thank
it's
you.
exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And I knew that the Singapore question was a good question. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for the panelists. We're going to start with the AI game show, but a huge round of applause to our panelists here. Thank you.